determine the cost, or what we call creating the budget. We're going to look at determining the cost for personnel, for the human resources. We'll look at determining the cost for expenses, other things to support activities within the project. And we're going to look at two main methods of determining cost: understanding bottom-up and top-down cost planning. Let us begin by exploring the costs for personnel and other costs. Cost or budget planning in itself seems to be a very simple task. You need to determine what personnel you need, what sort of resources you need from the human standpoint, and then what other expenses you incur to support the activities that are relevant to your project. Using a simple calculator, you multiply the cost of your personnel by an hourly rate and you determine that. You take your expenses, you determine the cost of each item, and you multiply it out. It seems to be quite simple. Why is it difficult? Cost budget planning. Why is it so difficult? Why is it such a big deal? Why are so many projects over budget? Well, let's see if I can explain that to you. The prior dollars or amount for the project was given prior to the project being kicked off. What we have right now as part of the project, we have a lot of questions. So someone else did this estimate prior to when the project actually started. Usually done in a business case, could be a month ago, could be years ago, that the actual dollars allocated for this project were determined. And all we have right now is we have a lot of questions. And we need to answer those questions. The project manager and the project team need to answer those questions before we can actually determine what the cost is going to be. So project managers and teams and management try to work to this estimate. So here's the challenge right here. Is somebody give us an estimate some time ago, and instead of us asking and answering questions, which what we should do, we try to work back to this budget. That in itself is a problem. What we really need to do is determine the cost for the questions that need to be answered. So the problem is we try to work to that old estimate based on some time ago done by a business analyst with less information than we have right now, where we're trying to determine what the project's all about, and we have new questions. We really need to look at those questions and answer those questions and get the cost for those questions. So what can we actually do? Well, in the bottom left-hand corner, the key to project management success is making sure the triangle is in perfect correlation on all sides. We don't want it to be misaligned like the one on the right-hand side. So what can we do? Well, we must determine the cost of fulfilling the solutions to the questions that we've now uncovered. We then must inform management what the cost is to be successful. Then allow management to manage. Then inform management of the consequences of their decision. So what we need to do is, regardless of what the budget actually said and created some time ago prior to the project being initiated, even if it's in disagreement with that, we need to come up with a new cost based on the questions and answers to those questions of what we need to produce in order to be successful. We must do that, even though it's a big difference. Then we must inform management about that, what it takes to be successful, how long and how much money it's going to take. Then allow management to manage. If they disagree with it, they can say, nope, can't do it. Or they can say, nope, the original budget, just to there. Whatever they say. And then our job is basically to let management know the consequences of them making that decision. Regardless of what that decision is, we let them know the consequences. That's why we're project managers, to let them know. So now we're going to explore two major techniques that we use when we do cost planning. One is top-down and one is bottom-up. Regardless if we use top-down or bottom-up method of determining cost, they are both based on our priorities, our project priorities diagram that we created some time ago. As you can see, we have the flexibility across the top, and down the left-hand side, we have the 4 components that make up the triangle of project success. And you can see from this little diagram here that we have is that the most flexible, in this case, happens to be cost. So if cost is the most flexible and the least flexible is time, that means time is of the essence. We can't spend a lot of time doing cost estimates because we need to get the product out there or get the project going quicker. So that's where top-down can come in. Now when we change that a little bit and we make time the most flexible and we make cost the least flexible, then we should probably do a bottom-up because cost is crucial. So we only have a limited amount of money to spend, and we have to make sure that we spend that on the appropriate items. And the only way to do that is to take the time to determine what those appropriate items are. So when you have cost as the least flexible and you have time as the most flexible, then bottom-up is the way that you want to go. Now, the thing about the top-down is it's faster but less accurate, whereas the bottom-up is time-consuming but way more accurate when it comes to determination of what the actual cost is for items within your project. Top-down cost planning is an easier method, quicker, and often appropriate for smaller projects. Accuracy of your cost estimates can be increased by organizing your items into categories. The categories can simply be personnel or resources, and then other things that we call expenses that support the activities within your project. This is an image of how you would organize your particular activities that you have on a top-down to get your costing by putting them in some sort of category. For example, we're looking at resources here or people here, and we talk about how many movers we need, how many engineers we need, project managers we need, subject matter experts, and we come up with a total. And FTE basically stands for full-time equivalent. That's hours of effort that are associated with that. And simply by having each one of those broken down a little bit more, we can then apply a rate to each one and multiply it out to get our actual cost. It becomes a very simple way for us to produce the cost, but it gives a little bit more credibility than just saying it's going to take 9.5 FTEs to do that. So again, using the top-down approach and using the idea of putting things into that category, we can do the same thing. We can take materials, we can take tools, we can take capital, we can further define that into boxes and wrapping, dollies and things like that and give us a total cost. And now we have a cost not only for the people or the resources involved in our project, but also for all the material, all the other supporting things, all the other expenses we need in our project. You combine the two of them together and you've got yourself a top-down total cost of project. Bottom-up cost planning method is indeed way more time-consuming than top-down. And the reason for that is that what we have to do is we have to take each one of our tasks as identified by the work breakdown structure. And as you can see in this diagram here, our tasks are pack and move, develop plan, and design space. And then for each one of the skills involved, or the resources required for that, we have to list them out, like a mover, project manager, engineer, subject matter expert. And then further what we have to do is any supporting expenses we need to buy material or support that activity also has to be costed out. So as you can see, in order for us to do that, we have to explore every one of our tasks and extrapolate from that both the cost of resources and the cost for supporting expenses. That becomes very, very, very time consuming. But indeed, it is more accurate and it's used when cost is a critical element.